Well, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Good evening and welcome to Let's Talk Shop with Russ. I swear I want to come up with a better entry than that, but unfortunately I got it kind of like stuck. So anyway, how have y'all been doing? We got a bunch of people out there, 21 people out there in the chat already. Wow, that's pretty cool. And I appreciate all of y'all being out there. Dennis Goodson. Notice I got that right. Kenny Earrings. Okay. Jimbo, Aussie Man, Michelle Marcoux, Portal Woodworks. He's out there in the chat. Aussie Man is out there in the chat. Jimbo, I think I said him already. Gary Lucas is out there in the chat. So thank y'all all very much for being out there in the chat and waiting on us to be here. So I appreciate it very much. I was trying to do something. Been making a few boxes with actually this is one of the ones I've been working on with the box joints on the end. And I had a little problem the other day, and I wanted to make a dome lid like a pirate's lid. So I couldn't figure out how to do it. I contacted Mark Lindsay, and Mark Lindsay couldn't help me. And then I thought of Peter, and I got a hold of Peter Passuello, I believe it is, and from over at CNC Nuts, and he was able to help me out. And lo and behold, then I said, hey, why don't you just come on the show Saturday night? So he's going to be on the show tonight. We're going to talk about CNC. So that's what we've got set for tonight. Other than that, I don't have any announcements. Let's go ahead, and I want to talk about my wonderful sponsors, and they are Devobal Technologies for web design, development, hosting. Visit devobal.com. FastCap, innovative products for the professional woodworker. Go to fastcap.com. Rockler, 60 years in woodworking. Create with confidence. Visit rockler.com. Bearwood Supply Company, your best choice for hard-to-find woodworking supplies. Go to bearwood.com. Klingspor, the sanding specialist. Woodworkingshop.com. Seiko, the scroll saw specialist. Seiko.com. They provide me with my Seiko ST21 scroll saw and Scrollnado, the dust collection for your scroll saw. You can find them on Amazon, and I use Scrollnado on my ST21 Seiko scroll saw and love it. Other than that, just want to remind you that on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on YouTube, because I moved it to Twitch to here, we do scrolling and making with Russ. Other than that, that's all the announcements and that I have to make. So we're going to start from my left to my right and let the people on the panel introduce themselves. And on my left is Brenda.
Thanks, Russ. I'm Brenda G. Brenda G's Designs. I have a YouTube channel where I do comedy and crafts. I also do a live stream on Thursday nights with Matt Haas from Awesome Wood Things. And we do networking, channel support, and comedy. So we hope y'all join us there on Thursday night at 7 p.m. I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, probably all over the internet. You'll find me as Brenda G's Designs.
Do you have the cowbell handy?
I do. I've got the cowbell always right at hand. You
Go ahead.
Ring it?
Give us some cowbell.
More cowbell.
Chris.
Hey, boys and girls. This is Chris, the Old Cranky Workshop, and I'm back in the shop. Mother Nature has finally released her grip. The temperatures are staying above 50. I think we're going to survive the rest of the season now. But I want to give a challenge. Someone tell me how a shop that has been used since October got so messy. I spent 2 days cleaning out here.
Because you didn't clean it before you left it.
No, I did. That's what kills me. Everything was put away. I came back. It's not put away anymore. So anyways, good to be back in shop. Good to be here. And back to you, Russ.
Okay. Real quick, Mr. Dutchy Dutch says, hey, Simply Wooden Creations. Hey, everyone. He's out there in the chat, Mr. Dutchy Dutch. So Michelle, Kenny's earrings are still out there, and then next we're going to go Dixon.
Hey, Russ. Thanks for having me here. You can find me at Hoffman Signs and Decals and 3dprinting.com, and once in a while on Facebook.
Once in a while on Facebook. Cool. Jim.
Hey, Jim Bashirs from Driveway Workshop, and looking forward to the show. I was watching a lot of Peter's YouTube videos this afternoon to kind of get ready for the show. It's got quite a bit of information there, so if you're getting into CNCs, it's a good place to start.
Yes, it is, and he has a wealth of information on his channel. I've been going through and trying to look at some of his videos. So yeah, you're right. Katie Dotson.
Hi there, my name's Katie. I'm on Facebook. I come here to bother Russell more than anything else. But I want to say that the gentleman out there in the chat, Kenny Earrings, he has a great channel. He's a very good word worker, and you need to subscribe. I've really enjoyed a bunch of his. He does a lot of different types of woodworking. Does a great job at it. Explains things very well. He's just a good guy. So yeah, subscribe to him and give him a shot.
I can't resubscribe. I just checked. I'm already subscribed to him. So
well, then you all know who he is.
Yeah, Kenny Earrings. He's out there.
Yeah, he's
in the chat. Mr. Dutchy Dutch is out there. So subscribe to Mr. Dutchy Dutch too.
Okay.
Yeah, all of them. Jumbo, Michelle Marcoux, everybody. Good to have you here, Katie. I'd love you more if you wasn't so cranky.
No, you wouldn't.
I love you anyway.
I know that.
All right, Al.
I don't know why, but
get us the heck out of here, Al.
Okay, guys. Hey, thank you all for being out there. It's great to see all 40-some that are out there right now. You guys really are the reason we're here, actually, because anyway, I won't get soft and mushy on you. Thank you for being here. Al Forte, Odessa Working and Maker Shop, Kilroy 79763. I posted a link out there to that channel you were mentioning, by the way, so it's out there. Anyway, guys, next
is Paul from Paul's Messy Workshop.
Hey there. Paul Corals from Paul's Messy Workshop, and you can find me on YouTube under Paul's Messy Workshop. And Katie stole my thunder. Kenny Earrings out there in the chat's a good friend of mine, and I was going to introduce him here. And Russ, that's the guy I was telling you about that builds the just phenomenal models. And yeah, I wanted to try and get him on your show, and he and I have been talking back and forth, and we're trying to work it out to see if his equipment will let him do a show. So I'll get back with you and we'll talk about that. But,
yeah, if you can work it out, I'd love to have him on here.
I'll tell you, you'd love the stuff he makes.
Yeah, cool.
So, okay.
Looking forward to it, Kenny. So get your stuff together.
That's all I got. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. And Russ Meadows.
Yeah, let's see. There it goes. Russ Meadows from the Rusty Nails Wood Shop. Glad to be here, Russ, and I'm glad to see Peter. He does have a wealth of information out there, and by God, he's very happy to share it. Now we're glad to have him.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, as soon as I contacted him, he jumped on it, and then I'm talking about. I think I contacted him that morning. By that afternoon, he had the problem resolved or whatever, and showed me how to do it. But anyway, welcome, Peter.
Yeah, good evening, guys. It's afternoon here in New Zealand. Thanks for inviting me on the show. My name's Peter Passuello. I live in New Zealand, and I go under the name of CNC Nuts on YouTube. Not the way Russ spelt it on his thing, but CNC NUTZ.
Oh, did I put an S on the end?
Yeah, you separated it into two words and put an S on the end, yes.
Okay. All right, cool. Well,
yeah. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, Russ. I hope I can live up to the expectations that you guys have built me up to.
Yeah. First off, you said, what time is it there in New Zealand?
It's just after 12 o'clock lunchtime, Easter Sunday.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, at least it's not midnight or something like that.
No.
No, it's 8. It's 8 p.m. 8 something here, which is nighttime here on the East Coast of the United States. So, yeah. So that's not too bad of it. Not too bad. Noon over there. So, I have saw you and I've talked to you for probably a couple of years now, but we've really never been around each other that much, or I've never had you on my show or whatever. But and I was telling everybody else when I had a problem wanting to make a dome lid for my box, that's where this all came from. Explain it just real quick before we go to Peter. Here's what I did. I made this box, and in my hurry, I was going to have some stuff cut out on the front and on the back on the CNC with the front pieces. Well, I got overzealous and glued the dang box together, so it's too thick for me to put it into my CNC now. And so I'm going to put some embellishments on it on the front and back. But anyway, so then I got the idea of turning it into a pirate's chest. So I wanted a dome lid, like a pirate's dome
Well, if you
lid.
knew how to scroll, you could put little things on it all over.
Well, I'm going to do that. That's part of the embellishments I'm going to add to it. So I have a CNC, and I'm like, why can't I make a dome lid on the CNC rather than having to go through all that hassle of gluing all kind of little wood strips? I'll just put a solid piece in there and make it create a dome. Well, the problem was I could create a dome, but the dome was concaved on the ends too, not flat, straight up and down. And I worked with it, and I called my good friend Mark Lindsay, and I was talking to him about it, and he scratched his head and said, I can't help you there either, because I'm not sure what to do and how to make it. So then I went like, well, I know somebody that might know how to do it. And so I contacted Peter. So that's where this story began and how it's gone so far. And Peter graciously accepted the challenge and told me how to do it. So back to you, Peter.
Yeah, well, there's, as with everything, there's several ways of doing something like that, and I usually just pick the simplest. And after I'd sort of shown Russ how I did it, I made a video to share with others, because quite often people ask me how to do things. And I'm sort of getting a bit lazy now. Instead of typing stuff out, it's easier just to sort of show them how to do things. And I thought, well, I'll make a video of that and release that. And the good thing about it is there's usually more than one way of doing the same thing. So that could have been modeled in 3D. I chose, in this particular instance, a molding toolpath, which I know a lot of the audience probably aren't CNC orientated. It's effectively, it's almost like just running something through a spindle molder. It's that type of operation rather than intricate 3D modeling of something. After releasing the video, people came back to me and said, hey, well, there's other ways of doing this as well, easier ways as it turns out. So I get to learn stuff as well by sharing what I know or don't know. I can also learn as well, which is really good. That's what I like about this hobby. You get to learn things. And one of the best ways to try and learn something is to try and tell somebody else how to do it. That's something I find. When you're trying to explain to somebody, it can really clarify in your own mind how something works. And a few times, the light bulbs come on. I've known how to do something, but maybe not understood exactly how it works. But when you try explaining to something, it just sort of clicks together, and you can learn so much by taking the time to share with other people. Yeah.
Yeah, I went back on your website after you'd posted the video, and there was people that was popping in. Well, you could have done it this way, and you could have done it that way, which is great, like you said, because everybody has their own way, and there's more. We here in Florida or here in the South, we call it there's more than one way to skin a cat, which is maybe not a good analogy for cat lovers, but you get my point. There's more than one way of doing things. But your point, the way you did it was really very, very simple. And I didn't realize the molding tool path. I knew about it, but I didn't realize it would be that simple and easy to do. So that kind of like brought it out to me. I was like, holy crap, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, with CAD design, I learned. Well, we didn't have CAD when I went to school, and we learned technical drawing. You know, with the 45 and 60/30 set squares and your T-square and your pens and your pencils and rubbers and things. And I learned how to do drawing like that. And so I apply a lot of that technique sometimes to how I draw things, and don't always use all the tools I perhaps should that's built into the software. And as I learn a new tool, I add that. But things have definitely changed since I've started this hobby with various softwares and things.
All right. So question to you. For those out there who are watching and they may not have a CNC and just seeing this show for the first time, what are your thoughts on doing a DIY kit, so to speak, where you buy one and have to put it together, or just going out and or building your own, or just going out and buying a CNC that's already put together? Can you give us some thoughts on what those three things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see the advantages of all three. It sort of depends on what type of person you are. Are you the person who wants something off the shelf to use immediately? Are you the sort of person who likes to tinker? Or are you somewhere in between? You want to perhaps build it yourself, but don't want to have to gather all the parts together. Now, personally, I like to tinker. I like to build my bits from scratch. And so that's where I come from. So personally, I prefer to build them myself. And this here is a picture of my machine out in the workshop. It's quite large compared to some of them. It's about 700 wide by just over a meter long. That's the cutting bed on it. That's about just over 2 foot by 3 foot wide, and that's all built from scratch using plans that I purchased from joecnc.com, and then I've gone through and modified it up from what it originally was. It used to be a fully MDF construction on the sides there, and I again tinkered and built my own. And the advantage of building something yourself is you learn so much more by building. If it breaks, you can fix it. You like I said, you just gotta learn. You understand how the thing is built, how it works, and you can make changes if you want as well. So that's the sort of person I am. I like building it, even if it's probably not the most efficient way of doing something. Likewise, yeah, you can buy one. Russ brought a kit and put that together, and that's sort of a partial DIY build kit, but all the parts are there. And yeah, again, that's good because you also learn. You're putting it together. You learn how it goes together. Yeah, you just don't have to make the parts. And
I agree. I can kind of see what you're saying when you say you either build it or do DIY, so to speak. That by doing that, you really have the hands on and know how it's starting to work, how you have to put the motors on it, and the ZYX and all the other axes, and get everything going. I really understand that you really learn how to do that, and which that is great. But some people, don't want to do that. They just want to, order it online, have it delivered to their shop, so to speak, and put it together.
Hey, Russ, we got a question out there. Kenny Earring says, not knowing anything about CNC machines, how does one deal with the dust affecting the computer that controls the machine itself?
You very simply, you don't keep the machine close enough to the computer that's controlling it to worry about the dust. You have to come up with some kind of distance or some kind of way to protect it or something else.
You can see there on mine, the picture on the screen there, there's a 4-inch dust collection hose there going away to a dust collector.
Yeah.
Which again collects the dust. In my case, I've only got a 1-horse dust collector, so it's pretty small. It collects the dust, but it doesn't collect. It has a bit more difficulty collecting the bigger chips, whereas if I'd gone for the 2-horse, it'd suck anything that got in its way. But
right, but it's the dust that you actually want, because the big chips are easy to pick up. It's the dust that's all through the shop that you.
That's right. Yeah, it's the dust you want to collect, and a dust collection system, and that actually sits right next to my. I've got a laptop. You can't see it on the screen there, but I actually have a laptop sitting very close to there. I'll see if I got a picture of it.
Aussie Man also wants to know if the learning curve is very steep to use the CNC, and is it expensive to start up?
Well, that's a good question as well. Yes, the learning curve is steep in that there is so much to learn. People say, CNC, it's just, people just push a button and it makes your woodwork project for you, and it's not real woodworking. And anyone who thinks that is more than welcome to come and press any button on my machine. Because that's not what it's all about. It really is a hobby that you've got to learn so much to use it. Nothing is really difficult, but having built it, so I had to build my machine. I had to then I had to do the electrical wiring of the machine, setting up the stepper motors and so forth. I then had to learn the software. I did install software on my laptop, and we'll learn how to use that, the control software, to make the thing move. I then had to learn CAD software so that I could make my drawings. I then had to learn CAM software so that I could create the G-code files I needed that the machine would understand, and then I had to learn how to use the machine. So I know it sounds complex. It really isn't that difficult.
Sounds like a learning curve, though.
Well, it is. You've got to learn all these bits and pieces, and that's what I'm saying. The people who think that CNC is just push a button and out it comes, they couldn't be more wrong. There are just so many aspects to learning how to use these machines. It really is a great hobby. You learn so much. Yeah. And of course, by buying one, that's the other thing. If you buy one straight out of the box, ready to go, then you avoid some of that. You don't need to do the building. You don't need to load the software, perhaps, depending on what sort of a solution you get. You don't have to wire it up, so you avoid all that. You still got to learn your CAD, CAM software.
Right.
And,
so if somebody wanted to build one, where would they start looking for plans? Jimbo out there is asking that question, and actually I know of a few places, but where would you look? The one you built, you said you got plans for it, right, from a specific company, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So here's my machine as it originally was. I'll see if I can drop myself off the picture there. This is my original Joe's CNC machine. Please excuse the mess.
Looks like my shop.
Luckily, you can't see the rest of it.
Right? Luckily, you can't see the rest of mine.
Yeah, so this is basically the original building of my machine. And I brought the plans for it from joecnc.com. His plans have come a long way from this build here. And this is about my third or fourth machine too. So I've been through quite a few others over the years. So that's one source. You've also got the Gatton CNC machines. Dave Gatton sells the kits. He sells wooden kits, steel kits, and plans as well if you want to make your own.
Yeah, at one time I think he had the Sidewinder plans available for free, but anyway.
Yeah, but now he has
not available.
No, they're not. But he does now have his
yeah,
the Gatton, isn't it? I think it's called. Yeah, the Gatton plans.
Kit.
Yeah, and plus he cuts the kits if you don't want to cut them yourself, or you can go to the Steel with the Garage Works one like Russ has got there, which is a steel version.
Would seem to be nicer than the other one, but then again, I'm not certain.
Yeah.
So
either one of those jokers are just as good as the other, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. After that, you start getting into the lower end ones, your Shapokos.
I have an X carve, so you can definitely say that it's not as powerful, but it does something.
Yeah, well, yeah, you got your X carves as well.
Yeah,
they're quite lightweight machines. Even mine is a bit on the lightweight side of things. It may look very sturdy there, but I could really do with beefing up this X-axis beam, even though I've got a 1/4-inch plate bolted to the front of it as well. I'm thinking the next time I put an X-beam on there, it'll be steel.
Yeah, definitely.
But again, it's how you use the machine. It's if you understand your machine and use it to within the capabilities that it's been designed for.
Yes.
And it'll work fine for you. If you start pushing it beyond its capabilities, then it's just not going to work for you.
Yeah, I agree. Real quick, just noticing that we have like 48 people watching and only 17 thumbs ups. If you don't mind, those people are out that are slacking. Give me a thumbs up over there. Peter wants a thumbs up over there. Come on.
Smash it.
Yeah, smash that thumbs up and give us bring that up to about 40 people at least for the thumbs up. I'd appreciate that.
Does Brenda need to bring out the cowbell?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Brenda will bring out the cowbell if y'all don't behave. Back to, though, I would like to say this that you touched on, Peter, just for a few minutes ago. By the way, guys, if I leave, which I had to leave just a few minutes ago, my wife is sick. She's in there in that room and she's been texting me. But anyway, she's sick. Yeah. I don't think she's got a cold. I think she has a sinus infection. But anyway, so I went in there and checked on her to make sure. But for the people that, think the CNC is like, oh, you just punch a couple of buttons. They don't understand everything, not only the software aspect, but what you actually need to know about wood, because different types of wood cut differently, which therefore affect the speed and rate at which the CNC will cut them, and also the depth at which you can cut them. For instance, a piece of soft pine can be cut probably faster and deeper than a piece of hard maple or cherry or oak. So therefore, you still, even though people say it's not woodworking, that's a bunch of bull crap if you ask me, is you still have to know the characteristics of the wood and some of the stuff that you're dealing with in order to properly manage the CNC. Otherwise, you stick a piece of hard maple in there and set it for 150 inches per minute or whatever, and it runs down there at a ½ inch thick, and it ends up snapping the bit and everything off on it. Then you realize, oh, maybe I set those ratings a little too high.
Yeah, and some of those bits are expensive too.
Yeah, so there's a little bit more to it. Don't you agree, Peter?
I do, and the other thing is that the CNC machine is just one tool in the workshop. I've got other tools around. I've got the bandsaw, I've got lathes, I've got a table saw, and the CNC is not always the best tool for the job. If I usually want to drill holes, I'll probably just spot a pilot hole on my project and then run over to the drill press and follow it up with a drill. And drill my hole. You've got to use the machine for the right sort of job. You know, you don't use it for everything, and that's another lesson that you need to learn as well. That it's just one more tool in the workshop.
Yes. Yeah, I remember years ago, I started learning from my father about carpentry work. And my brother got into painting. But anyway, so first off, when I started painting with my brother and my father, we used no rollers. Rollers weren't even heard of. Everything was brushed on. Then along came the rollers. All the old painters back were going like, oh my God, we got rollers. It won't apply the paint at the right thickness. You can't tell what you're putting on. Everybody just like complain about a roller. Then you talking about really stirring the crap and letting the smell fly when they come out with airless paint sprayers. Oh my God, that's not painting. You can't put it on properly with that. So tools that we get and have available to us, like the CNC, the lasers, other things like that, they're still woodworking tools. It's just you have to have a need for that and what you want to do with that in order for it to be what you want to be in your shop. But like I said, we went through the rollers and the paint sprayers, right? The same old thing. So Peter, of the software that you've been around, and I know we've talked about Vectric software to design and make some of your stuff. How do you feel about it? Is it one of the better ones? Would you rather see something else? Is it user-friendlier stuff that you think? I mean, I just want your opinions on what you're thinking about the Vectric software compared to some of the other softwares.
Yeah, okay. So I've used several softwares over the years. I started off with TurboCAD, which well, actually, first of all, we should probably break down the softwares into two different types. One is CAD and the other is CAM. So for those who don't know, CAD is where you draw your project, and CAM is where you add tool paths to your project and assign tools to what sort of cutter you're going to be using, what feed rate, what speed you're going to run your spindle at, and it creates the G-code file, which the machine can actually interpret. So there are two distinct types of software. Now, TurboCAD, I started off using that for drawing, and that was CAD software only. So I could draw things with it, but I couldn't create toolpaths from it. But then I could take those files and import it into other software. I tried CamBam, which does both 2D and 3D machining, which is really good. And then eventually I moved over to Vectric software, and I found I liked that one the best because it gave me a full 3D rendition of what I was looking at, what I could expect my project to come out like when it was finished. And I've done it before. I've actually compared what I had created with what was the picture on the screen, and they look very, very similar. So again, I started off with Photo VCarve, which allows you to actually do things like this here. Now, this probably doesn't look that impressive, but it's just an engraving in a piece of acrylic. But when you shine a light through the back of this here, it looks a bit like a black and white photo.
Yeah.
They are really impressive. I don't know if... Oh, that torch is virtually flat. No, I can't really light it, unfortunately, for you.
No, but that's a lithopane.
Yeah. Lithopanes, yeah. And yeah, you can do some really, really impressive things with basic software like that. I then went to VCarve Pro, which is a CAD software, and it's got some really good intuitive tools in it that allow you to do some really incredible things, like the lid for Russ's treasure chest there. And then I also have moved on to Aspire, which gives me some 3D drawing capability as well. So yeah, that worked out really good. So yeah, I really like the Vectrix software myself. I find it really easy to use and great for creating projects. And I can probably quickly show you a project here that I did. This is the latest one I did. It's a 3D model. I did of a horse, a hobby horse.
Was that done in Vectric?
It was done in Vectric Aspire. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. It's made up of 3 pieces of MDF, two halves of a horse's head, basically, and then in the center is just a piece of 3/4 inch MDF as well, where the stick here slots into. So yeah, it comes out looking very good. I'm quite impressed with it. And then if you look here, yeah, you can do other things like this here. It's a little decorative thing I made for Christmas. Not sure what else I've got here.
If somebody didn't have the cash outlay for the programs, is there anything in the public domain or in freeware or reduced price, anything powerful enough to do a similar thing? Like GIMP and Photoshop or whatever.
Or Fusion 360, is that a viable one to use?
Yeah, there you go, Paul.
Yeah, well, a lot of people do use Fusion 360, as you say. It is free for non-commercial use. So, Paul, you probably do. You work with Fusion 360 for 3D printing and things.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that would. I guess it would have to be a CAD and a CAM if it generates the G code. Of course, what you do with Fusion 360 is import it into a slicer, and that generates the G code for the 3D printer.
Yeah, Fusion is a CAD CAM program.
It is a CAD.
You can use it. It's so powerful. You can use it for even laser cutting. There's so many aspects that things you can do with Fusion 360.
Has anybody used it for CNC in here?
I personally haven't, but no, the CNC woodworker. Was it New York CNC woodworker? I can't. No, he's not. It's not a woodworker.
It's a tough learning curve compared to a VCarve Pro.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
Jerry Brown uses it for his CNC projects.
I've messed around with it.
Yes.
Good learning curve.
I just found it very, very. It's not user friendly.
It's not intuitive.
Yeah, it's definitely, and not intuitive. And I just had a hard time. And I mean, I came from stuff like Corel Draw, a lot of your vector graphics programs and everything. So I wasn't impressed with it. Now I will say this much: I was impressed when I went over to the VCarve Pro and Vectrix software, because a lot of the stuff that I learned, like nodes and the way that the Vectrix software worked very well in Corel Draw and some of the other programs that I'd used before. So it was easy for me, or easier for me, to transfer over to Vectric.
Oh, that step.
Yeah, that step, because the tools are a little different. They're different, named different, a little bit different things, a little bit different places and stuff. But the idea, the basics that I learned from Corel Draw and from Inkscape even, applied straight to that. So that's what I really was impressed with Vectric software.
That Fusion 360 is such a huge learning curve. It's just like Blender, but then again, you have to remember it's like 4 programs in one. I mean, you can draw parts on there and make them move, animations, and it's crazy. You can import threads from McMaster Car, and so we're talking. But the VCarve Pro, when I purchased that, it's such a 6 months ago. It's such an easy learning curve. It's so easy to use, and it's real neat that it makes the G code.
Yes,
I tried to model this gear for my friend. He rebuilds old fans, and I pulled in that gear generator in Fusion 360, and I swear to God, I still have lost like half of my hair trying to figure out, because the gear teeth are canted in this. They've got a slight angle to them, and there's not like a nice cut and dry,
you can find that gear. You can find that gear, that exact gear, if you know the pitch and everything, and find it in McMaster Car and import it right into Fusion.
Yeah,
and
I tried that too. I can't get one that's close to it. But I'll tell you that the thing the software program that I've got a Shapeoko, and the one that I've seen that's really advanced their user interface program to just draw basic shapes and cut them out is Shapeoko's Carbide Create. They've done a lot of stuff with it since the CNC came out. But Jay, after watching Javi and some other people, Mark Lindsay, go through Aspire and stuff like that, I went from a situation where I didn't know anything about it. I thought it was going to be just another thing that was going to be really difficult to learn, and Javi gets on there and just makes the coolest thing in the world with it. And bad. It's not that hard to learn. I mean, if you're somebody that's trying to get into, wants to think, well, it's going to be another thing I got to learn, and it's going to be too expensive and stuff. I mean, it's really not that hard to learn.
Can y'all see this on my screen?
Yes.
You see Eddie?
It's a piece of wood.
It's a piece of wood with Eddie from Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
On there. This was carved in a VCarve Pro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a model that I had.
Nice.
Yeah.
And
I was studying softwares a long time, and I waited when VCarve Pro was like number 4. I waited and waited. All of a sudden, they come out with 9. I thought, okay, I'm gonna buy it, and I bought it. And it's I watched it for a lot of years, and it's just, when it comes to carving and CNC, that to me is the Cadillac software.
Oh yeah, this was VCarve Pro is excellent at carving the models.
Yes.
You can't design them, but you can bring them in, and you can put other models with them that come from Vectric people and do it.
Yes, and you have to remember, do you really want to take the time to learn Blender or something like that? Because you got so many DXF files that are coming in Vectric, these that you can just plop these patterns on stuff, and that helps a lot.
You got a question wanting to know how much sanding is required after cutting a piece, or does it depend on the species, the bit, and the amount of detail?
On this one here, I didn't have to sand hardly anything.
Can you go through
that, Russ? What wood is that? What wood is that? Cherry. Oh, well,
it was 3/4 inch cherry.
Well, Russ, can you go through that process a little bit? Because there's rough cutting, then you're going to change the bit. You're going to do surface passes and stuff. There's a lot of different passes you go through to get to that
there's
point.
only 2.
Yeah, there are only 2 paths.
It's the roughing and the finish path.
Right.
But you go through there and change your bit for the finishing and stuff, so it makes a nice smoother cut.
Yeah.
I started years ago to do a pattern like that. I had a cheat and cut the parts out, and I would write the G code to go around the edges to make them round and glue them on. Whereas now they got so many softwares to do that.
Right, exactly. This one here was already set up that way. I'd used a 1/4 inch end mill straight bit to do the roughing, and it took me about 45 minutes to rough it out. and it the finishing toolpath was a 1/16 inch tapered ball nose, and it took about 3.5 hours
Yeah.
Hey,
to
Russ,
knock that out. No
you were-
hardly, I mean, no sanding.
hey, Russ, you were making photos for a while
I still
using your
do.
CNC. What program were you using for that?
VCarve Pro and Aspire, or Photo VCarve. I've done all three.
Yeah, I had no luck
Done all
with the
three.
photo VCarve, but
Oh yeah, I started out with that. I bought, when I first got VCarve Pro, I bought the bundle, and it was bundled with Photo VCarve, which is what I really wanted because I like doing the photos. And I did that for quite some time. And then I got a little bit of Aspire, and I like that. I like the VCarve Pro a lot. I use it, and like I said, it does an excellent job.
you have to really get your numbers right to make your laser run good for the photo.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I bet you. I don't have a laser yet.
The bit,
right.
that's different. You just read it along. I have Russ. I have a question for Peter. For being in your location, it must have been tough for you to get some of your parts for when you were building your CNC.
Yeah, well, of course, I was also using plans from America, which was all Imperial. So I had to convert it as well and make slight modifications. But yeah, you're right. I can't get 80/20 aluminium extrusions. So I had to substitute that with from a different brand, which had different dimensions, and change things around. Anything I could import. I couldn't find anybody to send me the likes of the extrusion that I wanted. And even if I did, I suspect the cost would be just astronomical. So yeah, you're right. Certainly when I was building it, it definitely was difficult to get the parts, and it still is to a certain extent, but unfortunately a lot of the smaller parts now are easily obtainable.
What did you use for your controller? Because back I built mine like 3 of them 30 years ago, and you were really limited. There weren't hardly any kits out there or controllers. So my first driver boards I actually built myself, and then I found Hobby CNC years ago that came out with a driver board and your drivers all in one, but it was the circuit board. You had to put it together. You had to build it yourself. So I was just wondering what your controller did you use for yours?
Well, originally I started off with something similar. I brought some really cheap controllers. You virtually had to assign bits to the inputs on it, and I used Turbo CNC to control that because it was the only software that I still know of that you can actually use to give bit patterns to work out the movement forwards and backs, whereas these days now your stepper motor drivers are a hell of a lot better than they were.
Oh yes,
cheaper than they were, and they just use step and direction, which is the way they should be. So yeah, I started off with Turbo CNC for my control software and some really horrible drivers. I've tried a whole range of different drivers. I eventually moved to a Xylotex kit that was a 3-axis kit, and threw away the control board, kept the motors, and moved on to a Gecko G540, which
Xylotex is very good, but I like the Geckos better.
Yes, yeah, no, the Gecko drive I like a lot, and then I've been used Turbo CNC with that as well. I also used Mach 3. Moved on to UC CNC.
Yes.
And now I'm also trying out a Masso controller as well. So
I found some good driver chips about 2 years ago, and they work great as long as you got to mount them all to a big chunk of aluminum and have a fan blowing on them, and then they're good.
Back to Peter, the Masio controllers. Do you have some? Have you been experimenting with them?
Yes, I do have one. In fact, on the video I'm about to release, I'll be using that to machine my my lithophane. So the first test run I've had of it, and I've gone ahead and Jatinda from Masso asked would I like to help out with Masso, and I've agreed to join him and help out with the.
Right. So far, are you impressed with them, and do you think they're a good controller compared to some of the other controls that we have here?
Yes, it is a good controller. It's different from what I've been used to. It's sort of your Apple Windows sort of approach. It's like I said, it's a completely different approach. It's really good for an OEM maker to start with. Is you got something that's complete. A lot of people sell CNC machines, and they say, here's your machine. Go over here and download this control software from there and install it on your PC and work it all out. But the Masso is a complete unit in itself, which is really good. So yeah, I do like the Masso, and I hope to do a bit more with it on my machine.
Several people have been, and I've noticed that before out there, Peter. What did it cost you for the setup for your machine? And I know you're in New Zealand dollars compared to our, but do you have an idea of what it would cost in American dollars if you put your machine together and build it and everything that you have into it?
I've never really kept track of that. It may be a defensive mechanism. I don't know. But again, it depends on how much you make yourself, whether you buy kit parts for it. But the likes of the Joe's machine probably runs about $3.5 US to build. But again, it also depends on what software it's really hard to
right. I understand.
I've made mine piecemeal over the years,
right.
And
right.
Yeah, so it's thousands anyway. I can tell you, I've put a lot of money into the machine.
Oh, yeah. Well, even if you buy some of the ones around that are DIY kits, and they're running anywhere between $1,500, let's say, to $2,000 just for the DIY kits. No, there's some a little bit cheaper, but my point is you're still going to put in to those DIY kits another $1,500 to $1,600 because you're just getting the framework on some of them, and you still have to have the motors. You still have to have lead screws. You still have to have the drive box with the motors and everything. So I would realistically say for a DIY kit to get it up and running, and even if you get the plans and build one, you're still probably looking at a good $3,500 easy.
Yeah, that's right. It depends on what accessories you want to add, what level of software you want to buy. Do you want to buy the likes of an Aspire type software, or would you the basic desktop software, maybe Cut 2D or something like that, or do you want to use something free like Fusion? All these things, but they all add up over time, and then usually you find these cheap kits, even if they come with motors and controllers, they're at the bottom end.
Yeah, the bottom end. That's what I'm saying. So you're going to cough up. Even if you get the kit and put it together, you still have to have the motors, the controller for the motors. You still have to have, there's a lot of things that doesn't come with that kit that you have to add on to it. So I just don't see you coming in a lot less than about $3,500, even with a DIY kit.
There's a way to control that money. It's called feed rate.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the truth, because the software, the software that I have.
Xcarve comes with the easel software that cuts all that out, and the software is getting better. It's not the best in the world, but it comes.
Yeah, Xcarve. But
You're right.
now, okay, what is their basic machine with all that and all that?
About 1,000. I think it's about 1,000.
Yeah,
You have to turn down the feed rates on an X-Carve, though.
yeah.
Pretty much.
But for what it does as a hobbyist,
Yeah,
it's a good machine.
Right.
If you're just going to have something and you're making like
Okay,
stuff to throw on a costume or something like that.
Time out. I'm calling time out on this.
Okay.
And the reason being is because we're getting into that Xcarve and CNC thing. And let me explain something to you.
He's
No,
making fun of your
I'm very serious about this because people don't understand. They buy that Xcarve or the Shipoko or whatever, and they bring it home, and a lot of people are disappointed, and they can't make stuff with it. They won't do it.
but there's
So
different.
the Xcarve or the Shipoko and all that is really, really, really a hobbyist kind of deal. It doesn't cut as fast as some of the other bigger CNC machines. And now I know Steve Carmichael is one that you can right off the bat say he's made a guitar with one. He's made a bunch of stuff with that thing. He understands its limitations. He understands what it can do. He understands the feed rates and everything for that machine. My point is, don't buy one of those machines and look at some of the machines that you see online and what they're doing and think that that machine is going to do everything that machine will, because it won't happen.
Okay? He made a lot of neat stuff with that machine.
Yeah, he did. And they are very much a hobbyist, low end. Right. You just want to cut some small stuff, small parts, low speeds, and it works great. I'm not telling you not to buy one, but do be disappointed when you buy one and you see these others cutting all this other stuff and you go like, holy crap, this thing won't do that. Well, you get more of a hobbyist type CNC machine with that compared to some of the others.
It's dependent on your budget, because if you go out and look, a shop bought for $35,000 that has a 4x8 bed, that won't do what a bunch of the other CNCs below it won't do. I mean, it's wherever your money, whatever you can pay for your money.
Exactly.
It's how much money you want to spend.
Exactly.
And you can compensate with feed rates and make anything.
Sure. You just get the best with the money you can afford.
I was saying about the Shipoko and everything. Steve Carmichael understood what he had. He understood the feed rates. He understood all the stuff. And therefore, he's been able to turn out some awesome stuff on that machine that people are sitting there scratching their heads. How'd you do that? He understands its limitations. He understands the feed rate of the wood. He understands all what he's got. And people buy those and go like, well, I'll just carve this 2x4 in half in 3 seconds. And when it breaks, you go, why didn't it do that? Well, you don't have a CNC machine that can slice through a 2x4 in 3 seconds.
Well, that's the same as with every machine in your shop, Russ.
Well, yeah,
exactly.
But some people, for some reason, and I've noticed this, expect a little bit more out of the amount of money they purchase for a lot less. When it comes to CNC and stuff.
It's sort of the company's fault in a way, advertising this stuff. Like Peter was saying, everybody thinks you just push a button, but that's the way their commercials are, because they want to sell, and they have no idea. They show these plasma cutters and the CNCs, and it's not that easy.
It doesn't work that way.
You know, even in that hobbyist group of CNCs, I mean, I've got a Shipoko, and I could stand on that thing and it wouldn't deflect. It's a pretty heavy duty, but if I stood on an Xcarve, the thing would cave in with my 270-pound butt on it, and I wouldn't be able to do another thing with it. But even within that, the genres of the different types of CNCs, you got all the way down from the hobbyist stuff up to like a CNC router parts thing, 4x8 that people use for industrial applications. I mean, there's different levels of quality in each one of those groups too.
That machine you have is one of the stiffest.
I love, it's a great machine.
Peter, so
yeah.
Have you had the privilege of seeing the Shipoko and those?
I have seen one that somebody had put together, and yeah, it works. And as you say, you've got to understand the limitations of the machine, and use it within those limitations. And if you do, you will get some great projects out of it. But it's I look at it this way: Shipoko have done a good things for the CNC community in that they've brought a cheap machine to the public that they can use, and you go online, the easel software to make things, and then you got people like Steve Carmichael who can use it and make. I watched him make that guitar, and pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But by the same token, they've also done a disservice in that it's easel is not the best CAM software about. It's the sort of thing that people are likely to get frustrated with, and because they don't understand, it's not the pushing of a button. So again, people need to understand the machine and learn about it. And if you team up your Shipoko with say some Vectric software to give better files, then you can start making more impressive things. You can't go making. I don't think you can make 3D models with easel, can you? Does anybody know?
I don't think
I don't know
so.
about
That's an online service too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I don't know about
online
easel.
service. Yeah, so
Yeah, that's one thing I don't.
I do think you can with the new version. I know you can do carving and stuff with the new version of Carbide Create. But when Carbide Create, when the guy split off, when Shapoko and Xcarve split, and the guys took off with the Shapoko and beefed it up a little bit and developed it better, they had to come out with their own, version of easel, and it was horrible when it first came out. But it's gotten a lot better, and they've added V carving to it, and it's
and the easel also has that carving where you can use the roughing bit and the
change.
So, there's a reason why they are so cheap, if you can call $1,000 cheap, and that's because everything's lower quality. It's lighter built, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just saying there's reasons how they can bring it to you at the lower price.
Right, your belts are going to be a lot less expensive than ball screws. Right, you're exactly right.
Well, I had the privilege of seeing one of those machines up close and personal, and looked at it, and I went like, wow, that's like a toy. I mean, when you look at the little drive belts that are like 3/8 of an inch, or not even 3/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch, and they run on a 24, 36-inch rail back and forth. And when you look at it, I kind of like laughed. Sorry, but it reminded me of a kid's toy.
Right. Really with those belts, you're not going to see it with the naked eye with the belts, but you will if you start measuring.
I just thought it was a kid's toy. It reminded me of a child's, like the Lincoln Log kind of thing. It reminded me of a kid's toy.
Mm-hmm. But then what was it using as a spindle? It was probably using a Dremel or something.
Yeah, it was not much more. It was their router version, but you're right. It wasn't much more than a Dremel. But when you look at it and you think to yourself, okay, they did the framework of the aluminum extrusions. I looked through it and checked it out and everything. They were pretty good, pretty solid. The X, Z, Y axis, they all came together. The belts were the ones that were killer for me, that run everything, because as we know that belts over a period of time stretch, and if you put them under a lot of torque, they stretch, or it can skip a tooth when they stretch, or there's a lot of things about the rubber belts that they were using. But I was kind of impressed with the way that they put it together, because, like, I mean, it's a miniature version of a CNC, but it's for
And they
children.
improved a lot on it. They improved a lot on it.
They
And
have.
another thing, I don't know if it's the same now, but look at their controller. It was an Arduino board with drivers, which is, you know, it worked great. It's
It's
just
a new control
cheap.
model.
It's open source.
They have improved on it big time.
Yeah.
I will say that they have, but I go back to the original. What I stated was the fact it was not it was a hobbyist.
Right.
It was not intended to be a commercial grade. Don't think about throwing a 4x8 sheet of plywood down on that sucker and have it cut out all your parts to put something together, because that just ain't gonna happen. So,
But it did get CNCs into the workshop.
I think that's
a lot of people got into.
And they're when you get guys like Winston Moy or something that was kind of, you know, when Carbide Create really sucked. You know, Winston was still there doing something. Now he's Steve's out there, but now, you know, Winston.
I want to. I just want to pop over here and see what Steve Carmichael put in here, because I just realized he was out here. He put, "I treat it like any other tool. You have to do trial and error, test speeds, depth of cut, touch each different type of material, figure out what's best settings for each project." Amen, bro. Yeah. I understand that. And you're 100% right. You have to do that. But my point is people buy those things, set them up, and they think they're going to cut through a 2x4 in 3 seconds. And that's not going to happen.
Well, people go buy a 3D printer and think they're going to print out something in 5 minutes. And it's not
that ain't going to happen.
So, sure you can.
Steve Carmichael will come on back and say, just figure out your planer second settings for each type of wood, or how much you need to take off with each pass of a router. And it's the same thing. Yes, I agree with that. It's the same thing. So, all right, I want to get back to Peter. I want to get back to Peter real quick.
Let me get back to Winston real quick, but because I'm pretty impressed with this guy. I mean, he went from, you know, wood and cutting wood, putting a shroud around his Shapeoko 3 in an apartment while he was in college, to now this guy is milling aluminum and stuff with the same machine. It's just that he's progressed and learned over time that you can do that. Shapeoko hired him. You know, I mean, he's like the guy that runs around and he's the, you know, the voice box for Shapeoko now. And it's the same machine. I mean, you can do these things with it, like exactly like Steve said. If you understand how well the machine can work, if you understand that you can't run a bit through something faster than it can accept it, and just treat the machine like, you know, it's supposed to be treated, and it's a great machine.
Exactly. You can cut wood with a Cricut if you give it enough time.
Right.
I think you're saying out there that the Cricut won't cut wood.
We have opened up.
I know, and I'm sorry. I'm sitting here getting defensive over my Shapeoko, and I'm just like,
would y'all just?
It's great discussion.
And the belts, it was like he was hitting me.
When you got to the belts, I'm like, no, it's still cut fine. What's wrong with a belt?
It's good. It's good discussion.
I'm not dead nutting something into a hole. I can do it with a belt.
Uses belts.
It's all Peter's fault.
I figure out how I can import crickets now for cutting wood.
Yeah. Do they have crickets in New Zealand? It's not the ones that run around on the ground, but the ones with the little knives in them.
Well, it has been, I will admit, Peter, it has been a very, very good discussion tonight.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that everybody took everything away from you because they wouldn't shut the hell up.
All right, I'm done. I'm going to go in the corner and get in the fetal position.
I bet you heard Brenda and I have behaved admirably all evening long.
Katie has.
What about Debbie?
A couple of last questions, Peter. If you had to do it all over again, as far as once you got into the CNC thing, would you have still built your own, number one? And probably I understand you in being in New Zealand that's pretty well probably the way you would, but would you still built your own and if you had, what kind of changes you have made, and is there any different choices in the software that you think that you would have made? In other words, or you would, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you mean. To a certain extent, I'd do it all again. No, I definitely make my own. I wouldn't go out and buy one. You just learn so much building things yourself.
Right.
So no, there'd be no change there. What I'd probably try and do, and probably fail miserably as well, is try and not cheap out on things and move straight to having purchased my Gecko drive and decent motors and power supplies and things, instead of trying to save money. That would be my biggest thing. In my defense, the Gecko drive didn't sort of exist when I started building it, so I don't feel too badly there. But these days, what I always say is, if you are building your own, go out and buy the best motor driver power supply combination you can get, because you can guarantee you're going to keep upgrading, changing things, and maybe even build new machines, as I've done. I'm on my second incarnation, or maybe heading towards my third incarnation of the machine I've currently got. It started off as lead screw, rack and pinion, and now I've created new Y carriages for it. But I'm going to continue moving forward with the same motors, the same drivers, and they're one of the most expensive parts of the machine. It's, if you decide to ditch those, you're going to throw them away. So definitely invest your money in your drive motors and drivers for your machine. That would be my one piece of advice if you're building, to be honest. But no, I'd basically do it all again. I like what I've got. I like the fact that I built it. I like the fact that I can keep improving it, and I'd just build one again. Do buy plans as well, is the other thing. My first one I made from a picture. I looked at it and I thought, I could build that. And I did, but you don't recognize the advantages of actually having plans instead of building high. Yeah. So
second question, and when you said that, as far as I understand the drive motors, you want to go ahead and get good ones right off the bat. Don't get the cheap stuff when you build that and everything. So we pretty well narrowed down software and everything. Lead screws, belt drive, or rack and pinion? I think those are the three. Which one would you go with?
Right, I'd go with rack and pinion, because that's what I currently have. I find that before I changed to a rack and pinion, I was probably getting about 80 inches a minute at the most. Now it'll run, I just keep my rapids about 600 inches a minute now.
What? 600 inches a minute?
Yeah.
Yowza.
That's insane, man.
There's a big difference. There's a big difference in how well the machine seems to move with the rack and pinion.
Holy crap!
And
I can get that, but you have to have an $80 bit too.
Well,
Or
the
a
thing is,
chainsaw.
what people don't understand is, just because you can make it move quickly, it's a very limited advantage, to be honest. I can't really cut any faster than 200 to 300 inches a minute, depending on what I'm cutting and how deep and how big the bit is. But you can't really cut much faster than that, and that's with a 2 kilowatt spindle, because you end up outpacing what you can do.
Yeah.
And the machine's not rigid enough to run really high speeds and cutting at the same time. It has there is flex built into it. It's pretty much unavoidable, really. So yeah, it's all right talking about these fast speeds, and they sound really impressive, but yeah, it comes down to what your cutting speed is, and it also comes down to what your acceleration is, because you cut a 3D model, you find those things tend to be very slow. So here's one that I did a few years ago. It's a 3D model, and it just takes hours to cut, and that's simply because it's your acceleration of your axis, your z-axis, that will determine how far you go. So, yeah, don't get too excited about those fast-sounding speeds. They're only rapid from getting from point A to point B. When it comes
rapid speed,
run a lot slower.
Yeah,
and yeah,
that was 50 inches.
Yeah,
a minute.
Yeah,
that's as fast as I would take it.
Yeah, and you probably
always whenever mine starts out, I kind of let the Vectric software set the speed on the tool, but usually as soon as it starts cutting, I usually back it down and slow it down just a little bit. I prefer, my thought is two things: cut a little bit slower. Then I don't have to worry about breaking a bit or doing any damage or run anything else. And I don't care if it increases it by an hour or so. Who cares? Time, I don't care. And the second thing is, I won't have to worry about burning a bit if I push it too hard. And I have found that when you slow, there's a fine line there of slowing it too slow or speeding it up too fast as to what wood you're cutting, because some woods will cut cleaner a little bit faster, some woods will cut cleaner a little bit slower. So it's something that I'm still playing with, but I find that I do slow my bit or the speed down a little bit. Like I'll just put the G code in, I'll create it in Vectric, I'll throw it over there and create the G code, and I'll bring it out. And it's first thing I do, if it says 60 feet per minute or whatever, I'll back it down to like 50 or 40 and let it start cutting. And I watch a little bit to see how it's doing. Then I'm like, all right, it's cutting pretty good on that. And I'll increase it back up a little bit. So that's how I do mine.
Yeah, and that's where I am as well. I just start mine to 100 inches a minute, 10,000 RPM on the spindle, and then I look and listen and either increase the feed rate or back it off, depending on what it sounds like, what it looks like. And that's what I find from my machine is a good starting point.
Yeah,
you can actually hear when it's not cutting right or going too fast.
Oh, you can hear. You can hear when it screws up.
Yes,
and you can't get to that damn button to push it to stop.
You would be surprised how many people actually burn up a bit because they're going too slow.
Yes, and it will. It will super. Yes. That's another thing. If you go too slow, it will superheat the wood and the bit. So there's a fine line. But my point was about that is mine made a little bit of a wrong thing the other day, and you can't get to that damn stop button quick enough. I don't care who you are. You have to be like Superman, like pow, instant. Yeah, that thing screwed up the other day, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm trying to get over there to get it to it and stop it and everything. I'm like,
hey Peter, can we jump to one of the modifications you made to your CNC and ask you how you did it and that kind of thing? It was your rotary axis. I've got a laser printer and I've got the CNC, and I want to put a rotary on both of those. And how did you go about
Peter? Are we? I think
do we have enough time?
Yeah. I think you said that you're like 12 or 1 o'clock at your time.
Yeah. It's only just 20 past 1 now.
Okay, so you got plenty of time, no problem.
I've got another 12 hours before I go to bed, probably.
All right.
He's from the future.
Yeah, let's go for it then. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you can see here that I built a rotary axis for my one. Yeah.
Now, what axis stepper is controlling the rotary?
So there's actually replaced the Y because I didn't have enough stepper motor drives available. I basically pulled the axis into position to where I wanted it to be. Just drag the machine forward, and then I just locked it in place with a couple of clamps, so it didn't move anywhere.
Okay, that's kind of how you do it with the laser. You just kind of replace the Y-axis with the rotary and just put the laser on the line you want.
That's right. And if you're using the likes of lead screw, then you can simply just drive it forward to where you want it to be and stop it and disconnect the motors, and it won't move. But since mine are rack and pinion, if I lean on it, it'll just push forward and move out of position. So that's why I actually made some wooden blocks that go between the hard stops, and then I just clamped it to that, so it can't move backwards and forwards. And then I got my X going left to right, and I plugged in the stepper motor into one of the spare drives now that I have positions I had, and that's the rotary for me.
So you just do it regular in the CAM part of the program. So when the G code's generated, it just does it regular, or do you tell Vectrix that you're going to use the Y-axis for a rotary axis?
No, I actually use the Vectrix software actually does a rotary axis. So you just tell it you're using a rotary, and it'll sort it all out for you.
But you need another stepper driver for that, right?
No, well, I then use, what I did is in Mac 3, when I was doing this here, I simply set up an entirely new profile and reassign the A-axis to the thing and just load up the appropriate profile for the job. It's the same for the laser. I designed this here, the laser shoe that fitted over my, it was the router at the time. Unfortunately, my spindle now is a smaller diameter and it won't fit anymore. But again, that attached to the machine, and again, I created a new profile, added an extra axis in there, and that just turned on and off as necessary.
Looks like in the last picture you had a touch plate. You use a touch plate?
Yes, I do.
Right on the left there.
On the left.
The little round thing on the left way. Maybe that's not your touch plate. Yeah, keep going with your mouse. Maybe that's not your touch plate. Right there, up a little.
That's the e-stop switch.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a touch plate.
Yeah, but I do use a touch plate. A gentleman by the name of John Revel, he came up with some software for CNC, and I made a version for Mac 3 different from most touch plates. We have a material offset, thickness offset, that allows us to basically put the touch plate on the surface of the tabletop and machine so that you don't end up carving into your tabletop. I mean, you can see relatively how clean, no, you can't until I switch back. You can see how clean the surface of the my table looks there. There's no real carvings going on in there. I very rarely ever flatten that. And even when I do, I only take a few millimeter, half a millimeter off at a time. And by using that touch plate, we can actually carve without actually carving up the tabletop. Just the way I do it, though.
That's accuracy, yeah. That's really good accuracy, in fact.
Yeah. Peter, what kind of end stops do you use? End stop detectors?
None. I have aluminium angle on each end, and if I run into them, it stops.
That's another can of worms. Sometimes you open up with ends. I never ever used end stops in my life either. You can put it in the software. You don't have to, but some guys. I have a wooden screw. If it ever ends up going too far, it'll stop it.
It's very rare that I ever exceed the limits of my tabletop. When you design something, it stays within the envelope of your machine. You shouldn't be running outside that envelope.
Yeah.
Now, just installed Masso on there, I have had to put limit switch or homing switches on, and then I can use soft limits to limit the distance traveled. And for those I use, I might have one here. It's a proximity sensor. It's not a I'll just see if I've got it.
Induction type or?
Yeah,
It's an induction type. Yeah.
Electrical.
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what a racking pinion looks like. I can only think of the front end of my car.
Oh, they're nice.
Here's what I got here. It's a
Okay.
I ordered it. For some reason, I thought it was magnetic, so I got a magnet put against it. Oh, yeah, that works.
Yeah,
Then
it
I
looks like
realized-
a Sunix. It looks like a Sunix prox.
Yeah, the company I work for invented inductive proc switches, and we make them for. Is it an Omron? Yeah, we make them for CNC router parts. So all those green tubular sensors you see.
I don't know. If
Yeah, I
you
think
read
that's a
that.
junky Omron. But the
Hey, what's wrong with
CNC
Omron?
router parts companies have those on. Hang on a second, I got some here.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with Omron.
Oh no, it's an OM. It's an OMCH. It'll just be a generic thing. What I didn't realize at the time when I brought it is actually it'll just detect any metal that gets within 4 millimeters of the top there, which worked out really good. That saved me having to figure out how I was going to attach magnets to things. So
Yeah, you don't need magnets with good ones.
no, right. It's
Oh, that's just a metal. He can put a screw in there and pick up metal.
That's a good one.
yeah.
That's
Anything-
that's a welder switch. It's got like a 40 millimeter.
Yeah,
sensor
I
there.
agree with Peter though. When you build, all right, when you go on the software and you make something, all right. I have a 24 by 36 inch machine, right? I would hope you'd be smart enough not to put something 48 by 50 inches in the software to be able to put in your 24 by 36. So you should never have to have those limit switches for the far out. I mean,
I've never seen the need for it.
Where they
It
come in
happens.
handy, and this happened to me, is instead of having the setting to move the spindle a little bit, it's really a lot, like for instance, an inch, and I sit there and go, okay, move, thinking it's going to move 20 times, a tenth of an inch. Instead it goes 20 times 10 inches, and it goes out the end. But that's the only time that I could see.
Yeah.
Because if you draw something and those are your dimensions, it will never go over.
yeah, it's not, I mean,
People like to use them for homing, which is
well,
fine.
the homing kind of thing I can understand.
Yeah.
That's not a problem. But in the same aspect, I don't know. I home mine. I keep it in the center of the damn thing, and I put it. I work from the center. I can't stand working from the corners. I have to work from the center of the project. Although, in certain projects that I have done, because of the fact I'm going to do a tool change, for instance, this here, it might be easier to pull it off of the corner for doing the tool change, then you don't have to worry about it. But most of the time I pull off the center of the project.
I take and go down on the corner, and I go down into the wood, and I've got a little mark. That's where my home is.
Yeah.
If I do a tool change, I make sure that I'm back in that little hole.
It's different strokes for different folks.
Exactly.
I have a bolt in the corner. That way I can push it all to the corner. And if I accidentally bump it or miss a step or something, I can push it to the corner and it's right at home.
Yeah.
Everybody does it.
A hobby. And
that's what I said. Everybody does it. Well,
Right.
Peter, do we have any more questions for Peter out there in the chat? If you don't mind, everybody look and see.
Yeah, come on, we got another 11 hours to fill in.
Yeah, 11. Well, hey, I want to tell you, first off, this guy, and I do want to say this. First off, this guy not only helped me work out the problem with the box, but then after he did that, then I contacted him and went, oh, by the way, would you like to be on Saturday's show? And he totally jumped in and came on and helped me out because I didn't have anybody else. I was looking for people. So, I mean, Peter, I can only say two things. And one, thank you for helping me with the box lid. That appreciate that very much. And thank you very much for being on here tonight. It's been fantastic.
The third
Oh,
thing
you're
is the check is in the mail.
What
Yeah.
what about his wood shop confession? Did you ask him about
Well,
that?
no, we'll get to that in just a minute. But yeah, I appreciate you very much for being on tonight. A wealth of information, and actually, it's turned into a really good show because everybody's been kicking in information as far as a lot of the people on the panel and everything. So we've covered a broad range of stuff. Right. I know sometimes Peter's sitting over there going like, yeah, because everybody else is like talking. But no, I think it's been very, very good. So,
Hey, when we were talking about feeds and speed, Kenny's earrings jumped in and said his Excalibur does a half an inch a minute.
I happen.
half an inch a minute. I will tell you this much. Regardless whether you build your own DIY kit, buy a kit and build your own, which there are several of them out there, or just buy one flat out right. On your DIY kits, right off the bat, I'll tell you that the only support you're going to get is from groups, from joining groups or wherever you bought the kit from, or getting help from like I needed help. Peter jumped in and helped me to. So that's where you're going to get your support from them. If you buy one outright from a company, for instance, like Digital Wood Carver, they offer a lot of support. Laney Shaughnessy, he's their support guy. He will get on the phone with you at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning if it's needed and help you work out your problem and stuff. So you, on that end, you get a lot of support. But don't jump into this hobby, even with a DIY kit. Put it together or whatever. There's still a lot of money you're going to have to spend to get certain things. You've got to have the stepper motors, and the stepper motors aren't cheap, and you need to have good stepper motors. You don't want $15 stepper motors. I'll tell you that right off the bat. So you're going to have the stepper motors and the other things like that, the controller for the stepper motors, which is another bundle. So I would say even if you did a DIY kit, you're looking at somewhere between $2,500 to $3,000, maybe even $3,500, somewhere in that ever. But I know you're looking at $2,500 time you get all the stepper motors, the controllers, and all that other stuff to put with it. So it's not one of these things that you're going to jump into and say, "Oh, I'll do this for a couple $100." Just be aware of that. Am I wrong, Peter? I mean,
yeah, you're not wrong there. And one of the things you see on the likes of eBay is you see these really cheap stepper motor driver kits. And one of the surefire ways of knowing that it's junk to start with is if the power supply on it's a 24-volt power supply, run for your life. It's it's. I actually did a video on stepper motor drivers and stepper motors, and just to give people an idea of what some of it's about. Even stepper motors that look the same can be completely different. One will work really well, and one will work like a dog. And that's one of the frustrating things is if your machine doesn't run well, if you're losing steps, you're not going to be able to cut properly with it, and you're just going to completely lose heart in the project.
yes.
I said earlier, I'm still using the same stepper motors I brought with my Xylotex kit, but when I changed from a Xylotex kit, and let me just say now that it was probably one of the better kits about at the time. but the technology moved on, and the difference is night and day between how it used to run and how it runs now. With the drive I've got, and it can make all the difference in the world. The difference between wanting to give up and wanting, to keep on in the hobby. So that's why I say spend the money on your driver and your stepper motor kit.
I have the Xylotech kit and the stepper motors from them, and mine's. I'm not going to complain about it because it works great for what I have, and I understood that when I bought everything to put on here, and I have never had a problem with it. Never, not one problem in the last couple of 3 years that I've owned this thing.
And the Gecko drives nowadays are so much better, and they actually really came down in price from what they were years ago.
Yeah, but the Xylotech kit that I bought for this one to put on with it, it works great. I can't complain about the stepper motors or anything else as far as that goes.
It's a good kit.
I mean, I've had a lot of issues with you get the bed leveled and everything else, and then you use it some, and the problems I have with this, and then all of a sudden, I don't care what you do, you put Loctite on it, you do this, you do that, and then inevitably something comes loose, and then you're cutting a piece and on one end and it goes deeper on the other. Your bed's totally fine, but something come loose, and I'm just so frustrated with this piece of crap that I can tell you that I'll be upgrading mine really, really soon. I'm looking at digital. I've looked at a lot of them, but I'm going to be moving forward to a digital wood carver. I can tell you that right now. It'll be probably by the end of this year. I'm hoping I'm going to end up having a digital wood carver, huh?
One of the things in Mac 3 you can actually look at some of the stats as to how many kilometers of cutting you've done on your machine. And you'll probably be surprised by how much you actually do. And that's there actually so that to remind you to do maintenance on your machine. Again, you're meant to go through and check things. And I'm guilty. I don't do it either.
I know. I understand that. And I'm guilty. And I do that too. And I also have been over it. But there's just some issues that I have with it that it's just had let's just put it this way. I'm going to progress, which I feel progress with the digital wood carver, and it will probably happen this year, probably toward the latter part of this year. But anyway, back, who was asking about the size? Yeah, right now their largest one is 24 or something by 50.
That's another can of worms too, because a lot of people right away, I want to build a 4x8 foot CNC, and half of it ends up being a dust collector.
Yeah.
Well,
or they want to make signs. Yeah, or they want to make like those big carved signs or whatever, and you need something bigger than a 6. Like mine does 16 by 14. That's the only thing I don't like about it.
Well, you just use registration marks and pins.
Yeah, I get that, but if you're, people want to make these, like I said, carved signs and stuff, and
I had a 4x8 foot one, and I used to make a lot of farm signs, and they were huge, but that all went away with the plastic and vinyl signs I make. So now I sold the one I built, the first 4x8 foot one, and I have my little 3x2 feet, and it does everything I want. And I thought if I got to do a longer one, I'll just put the registration pins in, and I can make a long sign.
But that sounds like a good size, 16 inches by 14.
What size is yours, Peter? What size is your CNC?
Well, mine started off basically 2 wide, 3 deep.
Yeah,
and
that's a sweet spot.
Digital wood carver that I'm looking at right now, which they are coming out with a bigger one. The digital wood carver I'm looking at right now is 24 by 40.
That's a very good size.
With a bigger one, which will be probably 36 by 48 is their next big one, but it's going to jump. Now, the one I'm looking at right now, because I want the full blown, I'm going with the 4-axis.
You're talking industrial machine, sort of, right? Close to an industrial one, right?
Yeah, well, the 4th axis means I can turn spindles and stuff on the side.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking at about $5,000.
Yeah.
I'm hoping he'll have one of those giveaways on his spindle TV, by God, and I'll be in the running for one of them.
Yeah, I'm looking at spending about $5,000 before it's all over. Now I use my own software because I have Aspire. Yeah, the newest version of Aspire. I just upgraded, so I have the newest version of Aspire. So that'll save me a couple of bucks right there. Because, but yeah, I mean, I've been wanting to do more, but I get so frustrated with this machine. Is because I level the bed. I know everything's level. Everything goes good. I cut 2 or 3 projects, and then I go to cut another project, and lo and behold, it's too deep on one end. I can see it. As soon as it starts cutting, I stop. I start checking things, and I'd have to use the Loctite that you could never undo something again to keep the damn stuff from coming loose. And
What do you have the orange one? The machine? Do you have the orange one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. You send it to me and I'll pay for shipping.
There
and
you go.
so it's like I get so frustrated. It's just like, and we're not talking about, and I understand about Peter, you said something a little while ago about, well, you have to have maintenance on these things, right? But I shouldn't have to maintain it after I cut 2 or 3 projects.
Something's wearing on one of your aluminum rails that they put that.
You understand what I'm saying, Peter?
Yeah,
you shouldn't have to cut 3 projects and go back through and tighten everything back up again.
So, I have one more question for Peter.
Yeah, sure.
There's 3 best methods, I think, is holding down the part. Is you got your clamps, and then they got the super glue technique, and I use drywall screws. What method do you prefer for holding down your part?
Okay, well, it depends. It depends on what you're making, but
right, how big, I suppose.
Hold down clamps. I've made my own. I don't have any pictures of them, unfortunately. But yeah, mine are just a basic hold down clamp, more or less just a stick with a notch on the end, and I basically use that for 90% of my projects, maybe even more. Basically, it holds everything down. I've got T-slots in my tabletop, which makes life a bit easier. And I've recently built a vacuum table, and I built that for thin material because holding down thin material, even if you hold the edges down flat, inevitably it bows up in the middle. So I built a vacuum table, and that works really well. I have to actually rebuild it, try and get some improvements on it.
Have you ever done the tape method?
What was that, sorry? The tape method? No, I haven't tried that. I know Mark Lindsay
right.
By it, and I've actually also seen the new, I can't think of it, CNC. They use it, and they use it for holding aluminium parts while they're machining it.
I've used it. I endorse it.
I do too. I love that. I couldn't see how it would work, so I didn't do it for a long time. And once I did, I told Mark Lindsay, I said, I don't know how in the hell this works, but it does. And I'm so glad I did it.
Have you guys seen the new pin nailer guns that have plastic pin nails for them?
Yes, I seen
and
that.
You can just tack your thing down. If the bit goes through it, it's not a big deal.
I would be nervous if I had a special project that cost quite a bit using the glue technique and them plastic nails. I don't know. I don't think
the glue doesn't get on your machine.
I don't think I could trust it. I just
There's nothing like holding it
No,
down.
no. That glue does not move.
Yeah. So here's a project I did, and you can actually see the clamps that I use around it. These little plastic ones. They're actually made from sign board, 15 millimeters thick, and they hold really well. And that's what I use most of the time for my. I use most of the time for my projects for holding things down. But yeah, lately the vacuum table. And I have been guilty of also putting screws in, because one thing I find that the those little plastic clamps will not hold very well is plastic materials like HDPE or something along those lines. So if I'm using that, what I'll do is I'll put the clamps around the outside to hold it down, but then I'll either put a screw in a couple of places, and that stops it skewing on the table. Or I've also been guilty of just grabbing small nails and just knocking a few nails in just around the corners. And the idea is to hold it. That's to stop the sideways forces moving it, and the other clamps can hold it down. So, that's the other way. But
I will tell you that I have tried Mark Lindsay. Well, I don't think he invented it.
No, he didn't.
The super glue with the painter's tape.
Yeah.
Man, that stuff works.
Yeah, and you can peel that right off your product. Or
He got it from somewhere else, but where I learned it from was from Mark Lindsay, and he showed it on his, and so I went like, that cannot work. So I use my hold downs. I build my own hold downs, and I build them out of wood. There's a reason, because if in case that damn hold down gets in the way of where the bit needs to go, guess what? The bit can cut through the end of it, and it won't screw anything up because it's wood. So, but anyway, so I had a little bit of a problem with shifting just a little bit on a few projects, and I went like, and I saw Mark Lindsay had done the the painter's tape and the super glue, and I went like, there ain't no way that can hold that great. And so, by God, I stuck a piece on there and put some super glue on it and pushed that thing down and held it for a little bit. And then I put a couple little extra clamps just to make sure the crap didn't hit the fan, and cut it out. And I watched it. I went like, no way, that thing sit there and just as sweet as
perfect.
Yeah.
The golden question is, would that hold up cutting a big sign for 8 hours? Would you trust it?
Yep.
I think I would. Yep. I think I would. Yeah. But I would also have a couple of extra supports around the edges just to make sure.
Okay.
I mean,
so then you're saying you don't trust it.
No, I would.
Where that comes in really good is if you have, say, a piece that's this big, and you really can't get clamps on it because you're going to be
right. That's great for something like that.
Here holds it, yeah. But if you can get a piece that's bigger, even if you have 1/4 inch on each side to grab, you're good.
Yeah.
Hey, Peter, if I remember right.
So Peter, have you ever used this super glue in the? Have you tried that?
Oh, sorry, me. No, I've never tried it.
You've never tried it?
No, I've never tried it.
You got to try it, man. You got to try it.
Hey, Peter, I noticed I think it was on one of your videos that you showed cutting out some pieces, and you used a down cut spiral bit, and the sawdust actually held the pieces in place till you were done.
That's right. Yeah. I virtually use spiral down cuts most of the time now. There was a time when I couldn't get the damn things, but now I've pretty much use them all the time. They are excellent for cutting certain things. There are certain things you must not do with spiral cuts, down cut bits, and that is drill holes. Never ever drill a hole. You'll learn all about creating fire that way. And if you really want to create fire, do it in combination with a vacuum table. You'll learn
You have to do a lot of pecking, so that doesn't happen. But the only time I drill a lot of holes with the CNC is when you're making a cribbage board. Then it's worth it. But you're right. You have to watch it.
Yeah, yeah. If you're drilling holes, either use a drill, which I can do now that I've got a spindle which I can take collars. But other than that, use up cutting bits. Don't use straight flute bits. They're bad for drilling holes. Spiral bits are just like upcut bits are just like drills, but downcut bits are just asking to burn your entire shed down.
I was surprised how much sawdust packed in around there and held the part in place.
All right.
Sometimes it can be almost impossible to get out. You've actually almost got to cut the damn thing out.
We need to get out of here. So, Peter, we do wood shop confessions. So you got to confess. What's the thing that you did in your wood shop that you just, after you did it, you just shook your head and say, "What the hell was I thinking?"
Well, in the vein of using down cuts. I wasn't. I actually have a sanding disc in my workshop, and had my vacuum cleaner attached to it to suck away the sawdust. And one day I wanted to just round off the edge on a piece of steel, and like an idiot, I turned the vacuum on for that as well, which sucked those hot bits of steel into the vacuum. And then there's me carrying my vacuum cleaner out with smoke pouring out of it. As it went dust bag in it.
That's my boy.
And just shake your head sometimes and think,
did your little fella get hurt?
Yeah.
Your little furry feller, did he get hurt?
All right. So, bless you, Peter, and you will never have any more wood shop confessions anymore. So you don't have to worry about that. I tell people that all the time is that no, my favorite one is what Steve Good. You know who Steve Good is, Peter?
He's in the chat.
No, I haven't.
Steve Good's in the chat?
He was earlier.
He was. My favorite one, Steve Good is a scroll saw guy. He creates patterns and does scroll saw and everything. He's a very good friend. We've been friends for like 15 plus years. And he tells the one that, I got to think about how he told it. He tells the one that he was doing something in the kitchen and the fire alarm kept going off, and he kept on going over there and fanning it, kept going over there and fanning it. And he just couldn't figure out why the fire alarm kept going off. So finally he got so frustrated, he just went over there and he just ripped the damn fire alarm off the wall. And his wife come walking in a few minutes later and she goes, "What the heck are you doing?" He goes, "I just couldn't put up with that fire alarm anymore." And she goes, "You do realize that's the doorbell." So yeah, that was pretty good. That's my friend Steve Good. Yep, he's out there. He goes, "Hi, Russ." So that's one of my favorite ones that he told here. Steve, I'm sorry, dude. I just had to bring it. Yep, he's out there. So he knows I'm talking about him now.
Yeah.
So he probably won't be my friend any much longer. So anyway, I think we've had a great show tonight. I mean, I really have. And thank you, Peter, for being on here. And I mean, we've discussed a lot of information that goes through. And that's what I was hoping we'd get to tonight, is those people that are out there that are thinking about going to the CNC realm. What do they want to look for? Do they want to buy? Do they want to build? And I think we pretty well covered all that tonight. And Peter, thank you so very much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I mean, you helped me out with my dome, my lid for my box right here. You helped me out with that, and then tonight you're on the show, and I really, really appreciate all the things that you. I think we've covered. I don't know how you feel about the show, but I think we covered a bunch of groundbreaking material, because those people out there are out listening sometimes want to, hey, I want to buy a CNC, I want to get this or whatever. I think that we covered enough material tonight that it might make them think twice about what they want and what they can do with it.
Yeah, I think the important thing to take away is don't be put off by, maybe you think it sounds too complex, but don't imagine that it's push a button and it'll create something for you as well. It's somewhere in between there. Yeah. Do some research and learn a bit more about it. And there's some great channels out there, people making things. Have a look at what they've got, what they're using, and sort of go from there.
Hey, look who snuck in, by the way.
Yeah, who the hell said that? Who the hell sent him the damn link is what I want to know.
Debbie?
Who gave you the damn link? Good. Who gave you the link?
Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way,
my friend,
patterns are also good for CNC too.
Yeah. Oh, they are. They are very good. How you doing, my friend?
I'm actually sick, but I'm here.
Okay.
You fought through, huh?
You remember that one I told about? You said,
yeah, you told it a little bit wrong, but that's okay.
It had enough comedic value behind it that it was worthwhile.
Well, here's the way it really worked. When I tore the doorbell off of the wall and had the wires hanging there, the smoke alarm was still going off. And I slowly turned around to the other wall and saw the smoke detector on the other wall. So that's how it actually happened. And
I got it. Turned around and saw the fire.
I said I got it mostly right.
Hey, Peter, by the way, I've watched a lot of your videos. You do great work.
Oh, thank you very much.
A lot of people don't understand that Steve Good's patterns that he produces for Scroll Saw, a lot of them can be converted over to CNC patterns.
And a laser. If you have a laser, Steve Good's
a laser,
either
has or. So you should start charging for your patterns, my friend.
You need to branch out, Steve.
Hey, the 50 millionth pattern was downloaded last month.
Wow.
50 million?
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
Holy crap. That's
just a penny a pattern. Just a penny a pattern.
Steve would be on easy street.
Oh, shit.
I'd probably put you in a different tax bracket or something.
Yeah, one where I didn't give a shit about taxes.
Yeah. That's good.
Oh, my goodness. That's pretty good. All right. He said shit, so he's the second person that ever broke the PG-13. That's pretty good, though. Yeah. All right. So we're fixing to cut out of here. I don't know. It's like now that Steve's got here, I'm like opening up a whole new can of worms. Do we want to stay on for a little bit longer? But I think it's about time we are. Peter, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I got 10 hours to go.
Yeah.
Russ?
He's gonna out half us off. Steve, do you have any questions for Peter?
No, I wish I'd have logged in sooner. I've been a little bit under the weather last couple of days, and so I was actually asleep. Woke up in the middle of the show, so I missed most of it. But I'll go back and watch the replay.
Hey, Russ.
Yes.
They're asking in the chat for Peter's URL to his site so that they can get in touch.
Okay, so Mr. Al Forte at CNC Nuts on YouTube.
I'm on it.
Yes.
Steve, don't worry about that. I woke up in the middle of the show too.
My man.
Here we go, folks.
Chris Ahern never woke up at all.
Nope.
It's CNC Nuts on YouTube. And he's also on Facebook under CNC Nuts.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I'm not very overly active on Facebook. Not sort of really my thing, but I usually see most messages and things that come through. Then I usually spend half an hour scrambling around trying to find where the hell did I see that.
Trust me. Yeah. No, you should be more active on Facebook though, because I'm hoping that and I do want to have you on in the near future, where we get more in depth on talking about doing some CNC stuff. So maybe let's see, this is April, May, maybe sometime in the latter part of May. We'll talk about it.
Hey, Russ, I got a question.
Yes.
A video on which bits to use for different types of cuts for us novices would be great.
Did you hear that, Peter?
Yeah. I did actually do, I think, a video about.
I was going to say, I thought I've seen a couple of them out there.
Yes, he did one on the upcuts and the down cuts, and it was a good video.
Yeah.
I'll go look for that.
I think Mark Lindsay did one too.
Yeah,
Mark Lindsay, I think, did one. There's another one out there I think I've seen.
Have a quick look and see if I can find it.
There's been so many, I don't remember them all.
Yeah, but some of it now becomes almost of it. I mean, Peter can put that out there. Mark Lindsay can put it out there. Whoever puts it out there. And you can type those settings in there and it works pretty well. But sometimes you got to experiment on your own.
Yep.
Well, and I think when you first start out, you're still too afraid of it. So you look at it and you say, okay, the software said it will run at this. So I'm going to back it down a little bit just to make sure,
Them are good. Yeah, them are all good anchor points.
Then you wind up burning the wood when you do it too slow. And
the number one, if you run your router or the CNC with the router through it and it starts burning, most likely you're going too slow. Either that or you got it way too deep and way too fast. So, but that's, once again, you have to have an understanding of how it works and what's going. Oak cuts different than maple. Hard maple cuts different than cherry. Mahogany cuts different than all three of them. Pine cuts different. So you have to start developing this understanding that just because I have mine set on 100 setting to cut through this soft pine and I stick a piece of oak in there, it's not going to cut the same. Yeah, you've got to learn about the difference and the depth of what you cut. I would rather make thinner passes, and let's say that because I'm going to set my unit up, and normally what Peter would set it up, it would be done in 2 hours. But I'm going to set mine up to cut in 3 hours. Yeah. Is that totally wrong? No, because maybe I say that I'm going to put less tension on the bit and do 1/8 passes on that particular bit, where Peter would set it at a 1/4 inch pass. No, it's just your preference. Is that not right, Peter?
Well, that's right, yeah, and it also depends on your machine. If my machine is more flexible than yours, you may be able to take the cut deeper and than I can. So that's going to affect my depth of patterns and speeds and feeds. It's a bit of a black art, really.
Well, I think
I do have a video on feeds and speeds.
It's not just inherent to CNC work either. I mean, you hear slow and steady wins the war, but even on my 3D printer, I slow it down and I don't have as many lines and faces of things where the layers overlap and it comes out smoother, and I slow it down quite a bit too.
One of the ways that I know that you can correct that is, especially in the Vectric software, when you set it up and you pick that tool, you can have the tool that you choose, and it puts the profile up there. You can actually, let's say that it says this tool will cut at 100 inches per minute or whatever. You can back it down automatically and save that setting so that that tool on your machine will no longer cut at that 100. It'll cut at what you set it. So the next time you come in there and check that 1/4 inch bit and the depth ratings and what it plunges to and everything else, it will be for your machine because you went in there and changed those tool settings for your machine. So that makes it really, really nice so that you don't have to accept all whatever or the basic settings, what the software is setting up for you.
Exactly.
So I did notice that. I went back and on some of the ones that I used consistently and did back them down in the tool settings purposely, because I can always go through when you set them down like that. I can always go through on the fly and change the settings and make it go faster if I want it to. But I don't know. I'm just kind of that kind of guy. I'd rather have it. I mean, I don't want to go so slow that it burns the bit as the bit's trying to cut through. But if it's setting 100, I usually back it down to like a 70 or 80. And then I'll go through and then I'm watching it cut through the material at 70 or 80. I'm like, oh, yeah. This bit definitely go through that material at 100. And then you just reach over on the fly and change it. All right, guys. Any more questions you have tonight out there in the
2-hour show? This has been great.
Yeah, awesome show.
Thank you.
I think
everybody in the
we've done very good tonight. I think we've done very good. We still have 36 people watching.
I'm out of here, Russ. Talk to you later.
You going? You going,
Paul?
Yeah.
See you later, Paul.
See you.
Good night, Paul.
Yeah, Paul.
Yeah, Paul.
So we still got that many people watching. I appreciate you very much for being out there. Dennis Goodson still out there. Luana Pierce, Michael Bell, all still out there. Kenny Earrings still out there in the chat, and many, many, many more. But I think it's about time we end this. I mean, I think we've talked about anything and everything that I wanted to do tonight. Tonight was just more of an introduction into CNC. When I was talking to Peter, it was just like, let's go for it as whatever the questions are. But if you're really interested in thinking about getting a CNC, you need to make a little notepad and write down some of these things that we have discussed tonight. As far as whether you buy one outright or you build one, because it makes a lot of difference. It really does. I know the buy outright ones, you get the support from the companies and everything else, but you have to look at the support. Now, I know Digital Wood Carver, which I'm pushing Digital Wood Carver really big time, because I know Laney Shaughnessy is a friend of mine, and he really does the customer support for that. So that's one of those Digital Wood Carver I would highly recommend if you're wanting to buy one just outright. They actually, if I'm not mistaken, when it's delivered to your home, it pretty well comes out of a box ready to use. And then Laney Shaughnessy comes to your home and teaches you stuff on how to use it. So that's one of the really pluses on that. If you build your own, just be aware about the kits and what you're doing and where you're getting them from, but don't think if you're going to buy one for $1,299 it's going to work, because I'd be very surprised about that. Think more of the fact that you're going to drop $2 to $3 grand easy. They have everything that you're going to need to put together and make one work. That would be more realistic, because most of these DIY kits that you buy, they come with they don't have the controllers. They don't have the stepper motors. They don't have the controllers. They don't have all these other things that go with it. They're just selling you the plans or selling you the kit of the basic skeleton of the project, but you still have to buy the stepper motors. You still have to buy the controllers. You still have to buy the software. There's a lot of things that's involved. So some of these kits that look good at $1,800 or $1,900, you can get a CNC for this. By the time you add everything to it, you're still up at the $2,500, $3,000 mark. So just be aware of that, because not everything you see out there is what I would say the truth, so to speak. So, anything else you would like to add to that, Peter?
No, that sounds about right. Just be aware of what it is you're purchasing, and do some research is the way to go. Ask people what their opinions are. If you're buying something from a well-known brand, there should be groups available to check up on what it is you're purchasing, and ask about what are the good points, what are the bad points, and sort of go from there. That's one of the things I liked about building my one, having purchased plans, getting access to a private forum. I got the support I needed in building, and even once, that's the other thing is, even if you build one or once you buy one, you need that ongoing support on using it, and that's one of the things I was lucky enough to get with the one I built, that ongoing support, to the point where I was able to go out on my own and use it, and get to the point I am now.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning. I've still got lots more to learn.
Oh, trust me, I'm learning every day. Especially, I had to learn how to build the top to the box from you. But yeah, there are a lot of support groups on Facebook also. You check them out on Facebook. There's a lot of people out there that are doing the support groups on Facebook. So that would help also. But yeah, reach out to these people and ask them questions. We're fixing to cut out of here. Thank you all y'all for still being on. Hell, we got 28, 29 people still here. Dan Inge Woodworking, Liberty Woodworking, Dennis Goodson, Michael Bell, Luana Pierce, Kenny Earrings, all out there in the
Hey, let's do this for a sec, Russ.
Huh?
We always get the same people that post in the room here. So if you're out there now, one of the 28 left, and just like pop a comment in there and say hi so we know who's out here, because we, other than the people that talk to each other quite a bit, we never really know who's out there.
Yeah, I'm still
unless
here.
Unless you're a xenophobe, you don't want to know anybody to know you're out there. Pop something out there so we know who you are.
Kenny Earring says, what? Russ is going to sing? Yeah, you're going to hear me sing for the night's over. Aussie Man's still here. Luana Pierce is still here.
sooner rather than later.
Dan Inglewood, Dave Hart. Dan Inglewood wants to know, how about a show on drum sanders? We can do that. I have some information on drum sanders. Michelle Marcoux still here. Jim Bashir still here. Kenny Ear is worth the wait. Dennis Goodson. Luana Pierce. Yeah, we got a lot of people out there. They're still there.
And remember, folks, mail your spare sawdust to Simply Wooden Creations.
No, you don't. Steve Carmichael's still out there. He goes, "Hey, I'm still here." Yeah. All right, guys, we are going to cut out of here. I personally have had enough for tonight. So, thank you, Brenda. Thank you,
sir.
Chris, Dixon, Jim, Al, Russ, and Mr. Steve Good. And who else has dropped out? Paul Messie's Workshop was here. Katie Dotson was here earlier. So thank you, Katie and Paul, for being here. And a big thank you to Peter. Thank you very much for coming on tonight.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, I think this is up there with one of those. I know we say that all the time, but we have some of these shows that are really very informative, and I get a ton of email and stuff afterwards, and I think this is one of those. So, like I said, Peter, thank you very much for coming on at a short notice and being here tonight. All right, so there's only one thing that we've got left to do, and everybody keeps on telling me, where is it at? Where's it at? So here we go. First off, I'm going to say, I caught you, didn't I? I think it was a great show, and I just want to say that I put Peter on a really last minute notice, because when I asked him about fixing or doing the lid for this, and then I texted him back about being on the show, he responded back, Johnny on the spot, and he was here tonight. So big shout out, and go check out his CNC Nuts here on YouTube and also over on Facebook, CNC Nuts. And now we'll get to Just Give Me Sawdust. Lots of sawdust all around me and everywhere. I like it flying all around my shop and even in my beard and hair. Good night, everybody.
Not all.
Night,
Not
y'all.
long.
Bye.
Time to go home.
God
Remember, you don't have to go
Yeah.
home, but you cannot stay here because we're not.
Remember, email your sawdust to Russ. He loves it.
Yeah, right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.